Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Dawson, and I'm the professor of violin and viola at MTSU. Today, I would like to give you some helpful ideas for preparing for the 9th and 10th grade viola mid-state audition. We'll be looking at some ways to practice the Brook Romance excerpt, and I would like for you to keep in mind always that success is all about practicing correctly. Let's look at some ways so we can get you on track to playing your best audition. The first thing that we're going to talk about is our tempo. We want to make sure that we have a plan for what our tempo is. I'm aiming for 72 for the quarter note eventually, but I'm going to start at half of that. And that's very important that we use our metronome from the beginning, but do a slower tempo. So you can start even slower than that, but we're doing 72 for the 8th note. So that's something that we'll see. I would like to show a little bit of fingerings. The excerpt that you're given has no fingerings, and we should strive to play the most artistic fingerings that we can. But if you're not comfortable in all of the positions, I'm going to show you a way to play it with mostly lower position, mostly first position, and just some kind of necessary shifts. But I do recommend that you explore some of the other fingerings too. So when I show you the fingerings, the ones on the top are going to be blue, and those are like my fingerings that that help me play very musically. And the ones underneath in green are the ones that are a little easier if you're not ready to do all the shifting. The ones that I use in blue, it's not the only possible great fingering, and perhaps you have a teacher that's given you some other fingerings, and you definitely should use that. But when we do the exercises will be based on the lower fingerings, the green fingerings. But hopefully they'll give you some ideas for how to practice other ideas as well. So example 1, the first line, I like to play this in 2nd and 4th position. With a little bit of 3rd position thrown in. If that's not your cup of tea, it can be played in 1st position, but I would really recommend that you vibrate your 4th finger. Right? Which is kind of why maybe we don't want to play it in 1st position, because nobody's 4th finger is their best vibrato. We need to learn how to vibrate our 4th fingers, but when the note really matters, we're probably going to pick a different one. So if you can do this in 2nd and 4th, or even 2nd and 3rd. So 4th finger. Is better than maybe playing it in 1st position. All right, next we're going to look at the 2nd and 3rd lines. We've got my fingerings on the top, where I'm doing a lot of, again, 4th position, some 3rd position. We have one shift for the green fingerings in measure 7, where we really need to get up to prepare for measure 8. So I'm shifting from the F and staying in 3rd position through that. And then for the lower fingering, I would end that with a 4th finger if you can, okay? So that is a place where we can't get out of shifting, and I really don't think we should do, so hysterically jump for the F. Well, you could do it artistically, but I think it's nicer if we're already there. So that's my suggestion. Again, if you're doing fancy fingerings, 4th position is beautiful. 3rd position, then 2nd. Right? That's what I like. All right, we'll go now to the 4th and 5th lines. If you're in first position, oh, I forgot to talk about measure 10, this. You could try to play that with the third finger, but it's not going to be our best success. So if we think about where the third finger would go on the G natural, and we put our fourth finger right next to it, that's likely to be more in tune than if we try to use our third finger in first position. Now, in measure 11, what we don't want to do is, that's not very elegant. So instead, we're going to do 2, 1, 1, or get fancy and play it in third position. But if you don't want to play it in third, play it in third. If you don't want to play it in third, then definitely do the half position going up. And again, use the fourth finger for the G sharp. And here's the other place where we have to shift up. So go ahead and do that. I'm using 2 for the F sharp because otherwise I won't really get a slur. Now, we can stay in first position. But again, just like we don't love our fourth finger vibrato, most of us don't love to trill with the fourth finger. It's a good thing to learn how to do, but this is a mid-state audition, so just go up a half step. Sorry. Just very briefly into second position for the trills, I think will be much easier than trying to trill with your fourth finger. Alrighty. So those are my fingering suggestions. There's plenty of different options there, but that kind of hopefully gives you some ideas for that. Now let's talk about how to practice the shifts that we added. So I'm just going to focus on a few of them, but you'll see how it works. In measure 7, we're shifting from an F to a B. And so we want to make sure that we know how to practice that. You know, that we're not doing something funny. Shifting should always come from the arm. So the hand and the thumb, everything comes along for the ride. Nice and loose, right? My arm is bringing me up to that position. And so we're going to practice shifting with the second finger, right? Before playing the third finger B flat. F to A. And that encourages me to shift with a smoother motion and not grab the third finger. And then I speed it up, but still smooth, not, but. And then I hide that in between note. I'm still playing it, there it is, but I'm not hearing it. And then once I've done that enough times, then I can put it into context. And that's how I like to practice my shifts, especially the ones that maybe feel a little more difficult. Let's look at the next one. This is our fast shift in measure 12. If we're going to come from the first position, this is how we would practice it. If you're coming from a different position, you have to practice it differently. But if I'm playing 2-1 there, again, I'm going to shift with my second finger into the third position, and then I'm ready to do it. Remember, when you actually do it in tempo, that shift needs to feel very light and relaxed and not grabby. And then the last one that we're going to look at for the shifting is in the very next measure, getting back down again. All right, so we're going to practice. It's the same, each of these is the same process, but with a different shift. And I think that's a very good way to practice any shift that you want to feel secure about. In other words, all of them. Next, we're going to look at a little bit of intonation work. Obviously, this piece is in the key of F major. We've got some accidentals and some interesting finger patterns with stretches and diminished fourths and whatnot. So we have to really feel where our fingers need to go. So the first thing we're going to talk about is making sure that even though there are flats and accidentals, we still have plenty of ringing tones, including the very first note. Ringing tone is just a note that has the same name as an open string, so A natural, D natural, G natural, or C natural, regardless of the octave. I'm not counting open strings as ringing tones because it's sort of going to ring, obviously. So, but there's a fingered A that should ring very beautifully with my A string. There's the G rings with my G string, and the C rings with my C string. Back to the A, and the A again. Here's just another C. So one of the steps when you're practicing it is really to check each and every ringing tone to make sure that you're not missing those. What we definitely want to make sure is that we're not fishing around for the notes in the So if you're doing a lot of that, stop. You won't get better if you practice with fishing. Stop and really evaluate each and every interval one at a time so that you're putting your finger down before you play the note in the correct place. Then you could fine tune it later, but if you're putting it down in completely the wrong place, it's going to take you a very, very long time to learn this excerpt. Take your time, be patient, it will pay off, I promise. Note all the accidentals, really exaggerate the feelings of the stretches, find a fingering that really works for you. And we're going to look at bar 3. We have this tritone. So if I'm playing it in first position, ringing tone G, and then I tuck my fourth finger across. If I'm in second position, it'll be 2 and 3, right? So that D flat needs to be low enough. I would vibrate it. It's a beautiful note, but it needs to be low enough. Bar 6, we've got C sharp and C natural. Well, D and C natural really need to ring, and C sharp should be right in between them. So make sure you listen that that's very distinct, very clear, and that we get our ringing tones. Bar 8, we have this diminished fourth, and I'm having you play it in third position. Ringing C. That spacing is not as familiar as some of the others. So I would suggest, instead of going directly to the G sharp, go to the A in third position. So that you're learning it in context to the A, regardless of the fingering that you do after that. If you shift up or if you shift to an open string, finding that G sharp from the second finger will really help. Bar 11, let's talk about getting from half position to first position. So for half position is a different position than first. We want to have our whole arm back at the nut, and then when we go back to first, we have to shift to first, not just reach for it, right? It's not that. It's a little scoot with the whole arm from a new position into a new position. So not no cows, right? We want to practice being able to shift lightly and cleanly so that we get, and not something schmeary. That's not desirable. Bar 13, we're going to do beats 2 and 3. We practiced that already. That's a tritone. Ring tone C, and then here's another tritone. Reach across. I am not doing the rhythm right now, so don't imitate that, but just practice the notes slowly for pitch so that we can hear all of those lovely tritones in that half step F sharp to G. So there's a lot of intonation work in this, but let's not forget that we also have to play with the beautiful sound and count our rhythms. So beautiful sound in a nutshell. Parallel, strings parallel to the ground, always, not down here. Strings parallel to the ground, bow perpendicular to the string, right? So that 90-degree angle here really matters. So posture really matters. If your teacher's been nagging you about it, they are correct. I give them all the congratulations on bugging you about posture, and you should feel bugged by me too. Good posture always. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we're in a good contact point for this. We have a lot of bow saving to do, some long bows, and so the longer the bow, the slower the bow, the closer to the bridge we need to be. Not too close, but close enough to make a good sound, even for the pianos. Is nicer than, I think, at least. I think that sounds nicer, right? So good placement, enough weight to make the string vibrate, and make sure that you're using enough of your hair. Okay, so I have a little exercise that I want us to try for the very beginning, and we're going to use the metronome finally for the 8th note, and we're working on bow division. So we're going to stop the bow every 8th note. All right, and notice that I say here that we're going to start at about the balance point. And then we're going to save our bow so we don't use all of it to about the middle, back to about the tip, so that when we get to here, we can use a whole bow and make a beautiful sound, or to get to that glorious forte. All right, so that was half tempo. Let's do that same exercise at tempo. More bow, more sound, less bow, less sound, but use enough bow to be beautiful. All right, measure 8. We do here I'm using the whole bow here, and whatever I've done before, boy, I want a lot of bow here. I want a whole bow. So make sure that trill, that we get back to the bottom of the bow. So here's from the pickup to 7. And the next part can be at the tip. So you have to plan your bow. If you notice that you run out of bow or don't have a nice sound, then look at what happened before. Don't look at what's currently happening. The bow planning always happens before we have a problem. Bow speed in 12 and 13. We're going to add bow as we go up. A little more bow. And slower bow as we get softer. Speed the bow up on the trill. This is a very slow bow, so be closer to the bridge. And then the bow slows down as we go down to the bottom. Make sure that your notes and rests have exact value. There's a lot of counting here. The stopping the bow exercise can help you with that, but just be really good about counting. And I would practice it with the 8th note beat first. The triplets are a little tricky with that. Get your 2 against 3, but subdividing is very important in this. And then the last piece of advice I have for you for today is to practice starting. I always find that when people have not done a lot of auditions, that they forget to think about how to just start the excerpt. So make sure, what I would do is I would make sure your left hand is in place. I'm tapping the G because I'm going to use that second finger, third finger if you're in first position, 4th finger A. I'm getting ready, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, I'm going to set my bow on 3 and breathe on 4. It looks like this. I'm set with my left hand. That happens first. 1, 2, set. I just practice that over and over, right? So find my left hand, have a trick for that. Tap, tap. 1, 2, set. And the breathing is important, and the counting is important because you need to make sure that you're thinking about your tempo. Well, that was a lot of details. I hope some of that was helpful. And I wish you all the best in your mid-state preparation. Have a great audition. Enjoy your practicing. Practice smartly. Practice intentionally. And if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about in this video, please don't hesitate to email me at andrea.dawson@mtsu.edu. Let me repeat that. andrea.dawson@mtsu.edu. And I hope to hear from you. Thank you.